Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, November 2nd in the year 2021, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom, brought to you by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Well, I hope you had a good week. I hope you had a good, safe, fun Halloween, and we hope that your team won their football game, basketball game, baseball game, whatever game your team played. And if your team wasn't able to win, just remember they will play the game again next year. Speaking of games, our current G-List guest today is a former coach and currently the executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. We look forward to talking with Alvin Briggs, who makes a big difference in the lives of young people, young athletes, pretty much every day. But first, I'd like to give a shout out to some former coaches of mine who've made a big difference in my life. This past weekend, the Auburn Letterman's Club honored Coach Doug Barfield by inducting him into the Auburn Football Letterman's Club. Coach Barfield followed legendary coach Ralph Shug Jordan at Auburn, and he encountered some turbulence during his tenure. His record was 27-27-1, which wasn't good enough for some people. And when the idea came up to induct Coach into the Letterman's Club, I can tell you that the guys who played for Coach Barfield loved the man and appreciate how he treated us and what he has meant in our lives. I played 1 year for Coach Barfield. He saved my career. My senior year, he became our offensive coordinator. The previous year had not been a whole lot of fun. We finished 6-6. It was the closest we came to a losing record during my 4 years. Coach Barfield came in, and that next year we went 10-2. But more importantly, we had fun. Coach loosened the ropes. I got to do some of the things I could do. I've always been grateful for having Coach Barfield in my life. Thank you, Coach. Before I leave the subject of coaches, I'd like to highlight another one of my coaches, Coach Richard Porter. He passed this past year. Coach Porter was our freshman high school basketball coach. He also coached the varsity. He taught me how to deal with the integration we experienced in Birmingham during the 1960s. He was someone I could talk to. He became a friend. I will forever be grateful to him. I said two coaches, but let me add perhaps the man who was most influential in my career, and that was Coach Ralph Shug Jordan. Coach Jordan won 167 games. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He signed the first black player at Auburn University and in the deep south of Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. There were only 5 black players who ever played for Coach Jordan. I was one of them. I was the second. I walked onto the practice field at Auburn, and 10 months later, Coach rewarded me with a full scholarship. I started for him for 3 years and never had a financial worry because of that scholarship. He kicked me off the team a couple of times, but that's another story for another day. I thank him for what he meant in my life. I was fortunate to have these men in my life as coaches. I look forward to speaking with Coach Briggs today, who also played for a legendary Auburn coach in Pat Dye, and who has been able to guide young men and women along their path in his tenure as a coach and now as executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Our G-List guest today is Alvin Briggs. The G-List is sponsored by Mainstream Financial. The G-List is Mainstream Financial brings financial vision and clarity to your retirement plans. Talk to the folks at Mainstream Financial and don't let your money run out before you do. This edition of Tuesday with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl has provided customized solutions to executive issues for 34 years. Let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Solution that fits your needs. A side note, the Best Girl Consulting Firm was started in 1987 as Thom Gossamer Communications. It was merged with Witt Management Consulting in 1997 as JTG Consulting, but then was reborn in the year 2004 as Best Girl Inc. 34 years and running. So let's get to our roundtable regulars and introduce Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Thom. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And you are where? It's dark wherever you are.
It is. It's very early here. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada this morning.
Oh, okay. Well, good deal. Good for you. What are you doing in Las Vegas?
Thank you. I'm just enjoying the city, Thom. I'm not much of a gambler, so I've taken in a couple of shows, and I'm a people watcher. I've done a little bit of shopping, so just really a getaway.
Well, there's a lot of people to watch.
Yes, there is a lot of strange people to watch in Las Vegas. I've seen some outfits here that I thought maybe it's an early Halloween. I don't think so. Probably. I think that's just well, in some cases that was true. In other cases, I think that's just the way they dress every day. So there's a lot of strange people here.
What else is going on in your world?
Well, Thom, today's November 2nd. We're about 4 weeks away from Thanksgiving, a big family holiday, and hopefully there will be a lot of more of a chance for people to get together with family and friends this holiday season, Thanksgiving especially. So looking forward to Thanksgiving myself and spending some time with some family this year.
Well, I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving myself and of course Christmas. Let's go to Michael Walker. Michael Walker, how are you this morning?
I am doing well, Thom. I hope you are too. And
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Good morning to you, Barbara, out there in Vegas.
Good morning, sir.
Michael is the president of the Walker Agency. So, Michael, I talked to you a little earlier about the Auburn, Mississippi game and how that thing turned out. I'm going to go and find out what's happening to you, but I just want to ask you something. What's with all these coaches going for it on fourth down these days? I mean, I was watching the pro game the other day, and I forget who that was, but man, they went for it 2 or 3 times on fourth down and just basically gave the game away.
Well, that's because they're going by that new phenomenon, analytics, what the analytics say you should do in the percentages at certain times, and certain positions on the field and yardage. So that's what they're going by instead of the old fashioned way, which is your gut feeling as the way the game is going. So that has a lot to do with it. They're even starting to draft players based on analytics and stuff and put them in the game at a certain time based on analytics.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna accept that. I kind of believe in watching the game and calling it by the game, but coach. So what's going on in your world, Michael?
Well, I'd like to mention, we have a lot of issues around COVID, and President Biden has come out and mandated that companies with a certain amount of employees, like over 100 employees, mandate that all their employees get vaccinated. And companies now are trying to calculate that cost of unvaxxed workers and what it will cost them if they have workers that do not get vaxxed in spite of the mandate. And they're saying there are 3 rings that they have to look at. The first ring is the unvaxxed worker, him or herself, and how long they may be out sick and what impact will it have on their particular job and the role they play in the company. Then the second ring is the exposure. What impact does it have on the rest of the employees if that particular person infects them? And do you now have a chain reaction of multiple people out? And what are the costs with that? And then the third ring is, what impact does it have on the business, especially businesses that are customer interfaced, where their business rely on consumers, and the comfortableness that the consumers have, whether they mandate their employees to be vaccinated or not. And again, it impacts revenue and sales. So they're all trying to grapple with that and figure out what type of policies they can implement.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Barbara, you got any comments?
I was just going to say, the customer interface, the interaction is a big part of that because, will customers want to come into a company that potentially have employees who are unvaccinated? I certainly wouldn't want to interface with any. So they really going to have to look at that closely. And I don't know which is I do know which way I think is the right way they should go, but it's going to be interesting to see how companies going to take a stand on that.
Let me ask you guys a question. Is politics now bigger than it used to be? Is it more important now when we make these decisions that we figure out the politics before we actually make the decision? Because I just can't remember so many things that business had to do that were so affected by the politics of the situation.
You're right, Tom. We've gotten to that point. I don't think it should be, but I think it's certainly playing a big role in the decisions that a lot of companies are making now. Looking at the politics rather than the true facts of the matter and what they should be doing. Michael, I'd be interested in your input in that.
Well, I don't know so much if it's gotten bigger, but it's certainly more prevalent or has more exposure because of social media and the media, and using that to kind of sway voters one way or the other. That's what you're talking about, Tom. And I agree with you. In the past, politicians didn't necessarily stick their finger up in the wind to see which way the wind was blowing to make their decisions. But you have that happening more often now, and especially now in what they call the cancel culture, and people are being more socially aware. So now these companies have to be very careful in what they do based on the exposure they get, whether it's negative or positive, because they are so afraid of the backlash, which would be boycotts and everything else, coming behind that. So I would say now it's just a lot more prevalent.
And I agree with you. I think it's certainly more publicized, and certainly social media, and who knows how much stuff you read on social media or see on social media is actually the truth,
right?
It's actually based on fact.
Yeah.
So that's become an issue as well. While we're on that and we're on politics, let me just ask you guys this: but do you think we're going to have a Senator Herschel Walker?
Well, I'll speak to that since I'm in Georgia and I'm probably familiar with that. I would say Herschel right now have a 74% chance of winning. And it looks like
primary or in the general election or both.
I would probably say both. I'll say he has a 74% approval rating among likely Republican voters here in the state of Georgia. And initially, people like Mitch McConnell was not in favor of Herschel becoming the senator. They felt like he wasn't the right person. Mitch now has gotten on board with that, and a lot of other Republican leaders are coming on board to support Herschel. And you have to wonder what caused the change of heart. I have my theory, but I will just stick to the facts.
Go ahead and tell us. That's okay. We'll keep it a secret. Go ahead and tell us.
We won't tell a soul.
First of all, Herschel is a novice when it comes to politics, and he may not particularly know his way around. I feel like they feel like if they can get Herschel elected, they would have a lot more influence over him. And, in that game, it's a blood sport, and they're looking for votes and people to support their agenda. And I just feel like they are of the opinion that they can control Herschel. But Herschel is trying to separate himself now and be more independent, and good for him. I think that he realizes that maybe having the former president's endorsement may not be a complete 100% good thing.
So when you say, and I know I need to get back to you, Barbara, give me just a second.
Okay.
But so when you say he's trying to separate himself, you're talking about in particular from the former president? Is that what you're talking, or just in general?
Well, he's trying to position himself as a more moderate or independent type candidate is what he's trying to do. because the former president is hard right, and one of the things that he did, and I have to say, he got more credibility from me, was when the former president came out later and said that his supporters would not vote in 2022 or 2024 if they didn't overturn the election. He's still pushing that narrative, and that he was going to encourage his supporters not to vote. And Herschel came out and said that that is not the right message to send. We need everyone to vote and participate. So that's the first. So I appreciate him for doing that. And I've heard since then a few different things he's trying to do to separate himself. But he's running off of name recognition, and that's the way voters are. And the plan is to not have him really go into debates, but to try to move forward on name recognition. And they say it's the playbook that Biden used. Biden, stayed out of the media and all that stuff. And so what I hear is that his handlers are going to try to keep him away from debates as much as possible, let him make appearances, say one-liners, do things like that, and work off of his name recognition because he has a big following because of that.
Well, I don't know about the Biden comparison, but it's very similar to the Tuberville playbook.
That's what I was about to say. That's
you don't debate, you don't
right.
answer questions. You rely on that name recognition.
And we see where that got us with Senator Tuberville.
Say that again.
I said we see where that got us with Senator Tuberville.
Oh yeah,
exactly. We have someone that doesn't have the true experience to be in that role, in that position. So I'm hoping that the residents and the voters of Georgia will be make a better decision regarding that type of matter. And
well, I don't know that. I don't know how well schooled you have to be today, because basically you vote on the party line, and your vote is pretty much decided for you, particularly as it relates to big issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I said a couple things about Tuberville, but that really follows the Tuberville.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never thought Coach Tuberville had a chance to win. And
I didn't either. I really didn't.
But on that side of the aisle, the competition wasn't that tough.
Right.
And then in Alabama, people just pull the R.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. Whose name is under the R, it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, again, that's where I'm hoping in Georgia they're going to be a little bit smarter than that and truly make an informed decision about who should, who they're going to want to vote for. It was in the last election there. They elected two.
Yes,
Democratic
two
senators, right? So
yes.
I think they are making more informed and intelligent decisions in Georgia, hopefully, than some of my counterparts in Alabama.
Georgia's kind of on the cusp of
they are.
A different southern state.
Let me interject this that's different about this. And I've been involved in politics for a long time, especially on the Republican side, and especially when I was involved from a PR communication standpoint. Those of us that were in leadership positions, we never took a side or endorsed anybody in the primary. Mm-hmm. If there were 3 or 4 Republicans that were running for a slot, we let them decide who would be the nominee. After the nominee had been decided upon, we would come out and support. In Herschel's situation, that's not the case. You have people that are coming out and endorsing him. There are at least 3 or 4 other Republicans that are running for this primary race to be the Republican nominee. And one is another African-American businessman from Georgia that's running. But because Herschel is there, they're all jumping on Herschel because they see him as the one to run. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just going to say, and I'm glad you said that, because that was going to be one of my questions. How many other people are in the Republican primary? And you're involved, so you know who they are. I've not heard of any of them, but I will also admit I probably hadn't done my research. to find out about them. So it'll be interesting. It'll just be interesting, not only in this race, but I think going forward, we'll see more people who've been in athletics or people who've been in show business coming out running for office. And, I don't know that you have to have and I said, I was surprised when Coach Tuberville won, but what qualifications do you have to have? At one point it was being free, white, and 21. Well, now you don't even have to be free and white anymore.
Right.
You got to be 35 or something like that. So,
Well, 35 to run for president.
Okay.
Right.
What is it a qualification to run for senator? Age qualification?
No, it's not.
I didn't think
you just have to be a resident. That's the
Right.
main thing is residency is the
Right.
main thing. And, they have other little things that they use to vet. But from a legislative standpoint, it's supposed to be a resident in the state that you're running, to be Senate. Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on. Anybody got anything else?
Well, one other thing I just like to mention is that the medical group of medical practitioners, that association, they are saying that right now during COVID, they're already short-staffed and they're having burnout, but they are also having another burden. That's the red tape that's coming out of Washington from a federal regulation standpoint. And one of the issues they talked about is that they have to get authorization before they can apply certain treatments. And that comes back from insurance companies being involved in the healthcare arena, meaning that you got to get prior authorization before you do a certain test or before you apply certain treatment to make sure that that is what's needed and what have you. So they're saying that along with other COVID regulations are compounding and causing them to have a negative impact on the patients that they are caring for right now.
Who is when it's causing them? Who's them?
This is the medical practitioners group, medical group of medical association. And, I just experienced that yesterday. I went around the corner to an urgent care to do a quick physical. And when I walked up to the door, there was a note in a magic marker saying, we're only conducting drug tests this week because of short staff. And I know the people there, and I walked in and I said, is this note outside valid, or did you just forget to take it down? Because I thought it was odd. It's an urgent care facility is what it is. Okay. And I said, are you only doing drug screenings? And she said, yes, because our doctor is sick and we don't have another physician.
Wow.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we complain about regulations, but most regulations have been good for the country, and that's just my opinion. I think that we'll. It's one of those where you say we'll see, and we'll see how things turn out. But if we didn't have some of the regulations that we have in this country that people have cried about and whined about, look where would we be?
That's so true.
So let's go to the G list. I want to talk to Coach Briggs. So let's do the G list where everybody is a star, sponsored by Mainstream Financial Group. Let's hear about Mainstream and see what we have to say about Mainstream.
Mainstream Financial Group provides financial services for both individuals and businesses. Mainstream's mission is to understand the unique needs of every client and work closely with you, assembling a team to develop and manage your resources to help you accomplish your defined financial goals. Mainstream's financial professionals will provide you with a complimentary, no obligation financial review. Now, these professionals can then offer you custom advice to mend together the pieces of your financial life and come up with a plan that is truly comprehensive. Mainstream Financial assists retirees and those close to retirement in planning for a secure retirement so not to run out of money during your lifetime. You can take advantage of opportunities with tailored advice and the resources to act on it. Mainstream Financial Group, www.mainstream.com. fg.com, 205-324-0589.
Green Financial Group. Don't let your money run out before you do. So let's get to our G list for today, guest. Remember, Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G list, where everybody is a star. Today's G list guest is Alvin Briggs. Alvin Briggs was selected to become the 5th and the first Black executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Congratulations, Coach Briggs. His resume includes he was a head football coach with Bradshaw and Coffee High Schools merged to form Florence High. And I'm wondering if that was an integration thing. Maybe I'll get to ask Coach that day. He was assistant coach at the University of North Alabama. He has extensive knowledge of collegiate and professional sports. He spent some time with the Dallas Cowboys. He has executive experience that no other AHSAA executive director had prior to assuming the role. So good morning, Coach Briggs. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Happy to be on with you this morning.
Well, thank you, man. We really, really appreciate it. So I know you're the first Black executive director of this organization, but you're also the first person to be hired from within the organization. And I think only the 5th executive director. So can you just talk about that a little bit and tell us what that's been like?
Well, it's been awesome. To be here in this role. I joined this organization in 2011. Coach Salvarese and I had prior knowledge of each other. His former quarterback, when he was coaching at Inslee there in Birmingham, was my roommate at Auburn, Ken Parham. We were roommates in Auburn. We came in together in 1983, and we kind of formed a bond from that point. And he likes to joke and tell everybody that I refused to play him when he was coaching. So our paths never crossed in that aspect. But joining an organization, the AHSAA, in 2011, and being a part of it, and growing and learning with him, it was just became a natural fit for me. During the interview process, he asked me one of my main goals, being in the organization, and I told him then to be in his chair. I wanted his seat, and he told me that morning, "Be careful what you ask for." But it's been good. It's been a learning process, even though I've been here for 10 years. Being in any new seat is always a learning process. So it's been good. I got a great staff. Coach did a great job hiring people here in the organization over the last 15 years. When he was executive director, I brought in a couple of new people, but other than that, it's been fantastic.
So help the audience to know a little bit more about the association on a day-to-day basis. What do you do, and what's the organization do, just so we can establish that for the audience?
Yeah, I like speaking in terms of an organization that people usually know a little bit more about, the NCAA and the SEC. We're the governing body of high school athletics in the state of Alabama. We govern the rules for playing rules that are established by the National Federation. And we also govern playing rules that are established by membership. Our organization is membership driven. It is a private organization that was established by 98 principals and athletic directors 100 years ago. This organization is 100 years old this year. And it's just a governing body for high school athletics in state of Alabama. And again, it's membership driven by the members. All public schools in the state of Alabama are a part of this, and private schools can elect to be a part of this organization also.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I talked earlier about coaches and the influence that a coach has in a young person's life. And it's, I'm a little bit past a young person's life now in my life, but I still remember those coaches who were influential in my life. They said something, or they did something, or they just sat down and listened to you, which made a heck of a difference in my life. You played for Pat Dye at Auburn. Tell us a little bit about Coach Dye and your relationship with him.
Coach Dye was a great man. I mean, he was, I always tell people he didn't recruit me. He did recruit my mother. Coach Dye, when he came to a visit, it was never to see me. It was always to see my mom. He would be there, and I would come home from basketball practice or indoor track practice, and he would be eating my dinner. And as I walk in, he's walking out speaking, and that was the thing. And he and Bud Casey both recruited my mom, so it wasn't about me; it was about my mom. But he was a great man. He was a player's coach. I mean, he was one of those that would get down in the trenches and show you a drill if you wasn't doing it right, no matter what side the ball he was on. He referred to another legendary coach all the time, Coach Bab Bryant, and a lot of things he did. Coach Bryant gave him his first coaching job right from Canadian football. Had never coached, had never thought about coaching, and went to Alabama as a linebacker coach, and didn't know what the heck he was doing, as he'll tell you, and kind of learned on the run. So he said he's always been a player and believe in his players, and that's what he wanted to find players, and he had a knack. I tell you what, he had a knack for finding great players that nobody else wanted, and we all bonded around that gravelly old voice that every day he told us he loved us. I mean, he would get on us, but at the end of the day, we knew he loved us.
That's interesting. Coach Lorendo, who was the offensive coordinator when I was there, man, he could ride you so hard in practice. I mean, he'd make you feel real small. But at the end of practice, when you gathered around Coach Jordan at the end and you're near, you'd feel this hand on your shoulder. And he'd walk up behind you and just put his hand on your shoulder. And that said, everything's all right. It's just part of the game that we're going through. Let me get Michael and Barbara on here. They got some questions they want to ask you as well. So let's see who's up first. Michael, Barbara, who ended last? One of y'all just step up and just take that ball and run.
I'll let Michael go first.
Okay. Well, thank you, Barbara. Good morning, Coach Briggs. Thank you for being with us today, and I want to say congratulations on your new position.
Thank you, Michael.
You said something there in the opening, and I was going to ask you this question, and I'd just like for you to comment on it. You said that when you first interviewed with your prior boss there, Steve Savarsi, if I'm pronouncing it right, correct? Savarese. Okay. Yeah. Okay. He asked you in 10 years where you want to be, and you told him you wanted his job. I just have to say things have changed, because I recall when I interviewed at AT&T in Bell South, they asked me where I wanted to be in 5 years. I didn't answer the question. I avoided it because I knew it was a trap question for me. And I think Thom was asked that question, and he said he wanted to be president. And they told him he couldn't be president. So, and like I said, I didn't answer it. I still didn't get the job because they said I'd want to move too fast. What kind of relationship did you have, and what type of confidence and security did he have for you to sit there and say, I want to be in your position in 10 years and to become your mentor to help you get there?
I think it was more about, and we used to talk about it. I think it's more about being, confident and believing in competition. It was more than he wanted to see what my dreams and hopes were for within the organization, being a part of the organization. Are you satisfied with being status quo, as you want to say, or there's any growth within you? I think when you look at an organization, you go apply for a job, is this, what do you want to do within an organization? Where do you want to be within do you have a drive to be greater than what are you in an organization? Is it a stepping stone? It's just, what do you want to be? And it wasn't anything I thought about it. I mean, it was just a natural reaction. If you're going to ask me that question, I'm going to give you the answer. It might not be the one you want, but it's the way it is. I mean, I took it as a challenge. I mean, you're challenging me to ask me where I want to be 10 years. This is where I want to be. So it wasn't anything, a slap in the face toward him, and he didn't take it that way. He challenged me every day from that point to see if I really wanted that position. I mean, it was one of those things that we constantly talked about. I came in 2 weeks later after the interview, and from that point on, I mean, it was everything here's this. Let's see if you can do this. And it was, it was unsaid, but I knew he was challenging me to see if I was up for the task. And like any competitor, I didn't back down. If I had questions about something he did, we were doing, I asked him, I said, hey, I don't understand this. What's going on here? And he would lead me in the right direction. I mean, and there were times when I didn't do things right and he got on my tail. I mean, it was, and being going through what I went through at Auburn, being a high school athlete, you are used to taking, excuse my French, Miss Edwards, a butt cheek.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're used to somebody being on you. So I didn't take it personal when he would get on me. I didn't take it personal. I took it as a challenge. All right, the next time you won't have this issue with me, because it's just one of those things. Either as a competitor, either you're gonna cower down or you're gonna step up to the challenge. And so, fortunately for me, I believe I stepped up to the challenge.
Absolutely.
One of the things that, and I think this goes back to what Michael said, times were different. They asked me what I wanted to be. I told them president. They said, well, you can't be president. I said, well, why? They said, well, you just can't. You just can't. So quit asking about it.
And I will be honest, I never thought I'd be in this position. Just to be honest, I never thought I'd be in this position. Through the grace of God and hard work and Mr. Savarese, Coach Savarese, I was given this opportunity, and my responsibility is to hopefully leave this place better than it was given to me, and hand it off to the next executive director. I mean, that's my responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you
I
guys
just have
had a very
go ahead.
Special relationship.
Yes.
I followed that. You and Coach Savarese had a very special relationship. That's special.
Yeah, he's a player. I mean, he was a coach himself. I mean, he coached some great players. I mean, he coached a very good friend of mine. Kenese Bennett, who played at Alabama. We have a great relationship because of Coach Savarese. Terrell Owens. The list goes on. Pat White. I mean, he coached a lot of great players, and he understood the dynamics of everything around him. I mean, you don't go into the inner city of Birmingham at Inslee High School and be successful if you're not willing to understand the dynamics of what you have in the inner city of Birmingham. I mean, you guys know what Inslee was like to be there. And, he goes there now, he likes to say he's really the mayor of Birmingham. I mean, he believes, he's the mayor of Birmingham. Everybody loves Steve Savarese, and they truly do, because he's transcended. He crossed all lines, and he had a knack for everybody getting along. That's why you mentioned Edgar Weldon. That's why he and Edgar were those people that crossed all party lines, all different lines, racial lines. I mean, they were all part of it, and they established a great relationship with people throughout the city of Birmingham. I mean, he's a great people person. I often said he's running for governor at some point.
He should.
Barbara?
Yes. Good morning, Coach Briggs. Welcome and congratulations on your new role. I know you moved into your role on July 1st, and I know you faced a lot of challenges, I'm sure, along the way. But one of the things I read that you've implemented under your leadership is the ladies flag football, and that started in the fall of 2021. Tell us how that's going and what progress has been made in that particular sport.
Oh, it's going great. Actually, we started this initiative in 2019. We started talking with the NFL flag. Isaiah Reese, who played football at UAB and from Dothan, his organization is represented by the NFL, and they came to us about starting flag in conjunction with the Falcons, who had a proposal for us to start this, and it's been great. People don't realize that Alabama is a football crazed state, and it has nothing to do with anything but those two universities. They've tried to have a professional football team here in Alabama and in Birmingham, and it just doesn't have that luster because of those two entities in Tuscaloosa and in Auburn. I mean, it's just the great part about it. And everybody wants to be a part of football. I remember when I first started talking about this, I have a daughter who ran track at UAB, who, when she saw the information and saw me talking about it, was really upset because this wasn't an initiative when she was in high school. Her and her friends both have gotten on me about this because it was too late. And we have right over 41 teams that are participating in Girls Flag. It's a pilot program. And I'm just telling you, it's going to grow. The majority of our teams, I would say 25 of them, are within 30 miles of the city of Birmingham. I mean, they're all. That's where it is. The inner city schools, the Winonas, the Jackson Olins. I mean, all those have 30 and 40 girls that are playing on those flag football teams. That tells you. I mean, and it hadn't hurt any other sport. Volleyball is still going on, but it's just touched the base of young people, young ladies that want to be involved and participate. I mean, it's giving them a chance to participate. And that's what this organization is about, participation. We started bowling about 5 years ago, and it has grown. We have a great bowling championship now that's happening. So, it's about reaching that student who has a knack for something else. And so it's going great, and we're looking forward to continue to grow. And hopefully, our plan is within the next 3 or 4 years that it becomes a full-fledged championship sport. Right now, it's just a tournament style pilot program. And this year in Birmingham at the Protective Stadium, before we play our 7A football championship, we'll culminate with a flag football tournament for our young ladies that we will have there in Protective Stadium in conjunction with our championship. And that's what our plan is, to have that championship, in conjunction with football. And it's been great.
That is awesome. That's great. Thank you.
That is awesome, man. That is. Barbara, you're up.
Yeah, that was me, but I will ask you another
Was
question.
it? Okay. Well, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Coach, I want to ask you this question, and you know more about this than I did. I think I read somewhere that a young female kicked an extra point or a field goal, I think at Auburn Junior High in a football game recently. Were you aware of that? And if so, did that come under your purview? Did you have to sanction that or approve that or whatever for girls to play on a boys' team? But I do recall reading that.
Yes, we've had several young ladies that play football. In just retrospect, unless there's, and I'm going to use guys cannot play on girls' teams, but girls can play on guys' teams. That's the way our bylaws are read, because there's an inherent difference between young men playing and young women playing together. So young men cannot play on the girls' team. So young men cannot play volleyball, but young ladies can play football. And we've had throughout the years, I've had a couple that come out during my 10 years coaching that came out and played on those teams, but we've had several young ladies that have gone out and play football, and that's nothing that we have to sanction. They can go out, and yes, this young lady, she kicked a field goal. I saw that, and we've had several. Matter of fact, I don't know if y'all ever heard of this little town. It's called Calhoun in Lowndes County. For the last 4 years, they've had a young lady playing linebacker, and she's led the team in tackles.
Wow.
So I mean, so it's not unusual, especially at your small schools. You have some young ladies that are playing, and so it's not unusual. It happens across the nation.
Wow.
That's great.
Coach, I got the question for you. So you told Coach Severese where you wanted to be 10 years coming in. Where do you want to be in the next 10 years?
Retired.
Coach
Okay, that'll work.
he says that, Tom, but they've only had 5 executive directors in the
I know,
history of this program. So every other executive director stayed somewhere between 15 years or longer. So 10 years would be that's set a record. You'll be the first, I think.
I don't know. I would, the dream is to continue to, drive the organization at new heights and level. And, I just celebrated my 57th birthday at the beginning of October, and I have plans. I really do. I have plans to be able to enjoy retirement. So when I get, 10 years from now, I start looking at that. And so did Coach Severese. Okay. I remember him sitting down, he said, I've been here 10 years, so I'm start looking at my retirement and where I'm at, where I'm going, what direction. And he was actually planning to retire before the pandemic started, but the board asked him to kind of guide him through the pandemic. And let me tell you, what that gentleman did through the pandemic last year was amazing, because everybody in this country, y'all know this, was saying we can't do this, we can't do that. And he believes in young people and believing in giving them an avenue. And what we were seeing throughout, once we stopped, and what young people were getting into, and the things that were happening, he wanted to make sure to have an avenue that they could get back to doing normal, because I don't mind, y'all know, creates havoc. And so it was a chance. And we were the only state association, little old Alabama, who people give us a hard time about, was the only state association that started athletics on time and held every one of their championships on time without any incidents. Yes, we had some issues where some schools didn't play and didn't want to play, and that was that community decision. But those that wanted to participate, it really enjoyed that, and that led to what we're doing now, that we're still having great results, and we're able to do things, and that to be able to give young people an outlet, because again, what we don't want is to give them idle time, because idle mind creates the wrong avenue that we want young people to go down.
Right.
All right, Michael.
I was going to ask you that, so let me dovetail on that. I was going to ask, how did COVID impact your job and implementing the mission statement for the Alabama High School Athletic Association?
Well, with Dr. Scott Harris, who's a state health director, and Dr. Eric Macker, who's a executive director for the state superintendent of education, and the governor's office, we just followed all the guidelines that were set forth. I mean, and really and truly, our communities and our coaches and the families in those communities really stepped up and made sure and did the things they need to do. So, so the young people have an avenue. Yes, we had capacity limitations that we had to follow. Yes, there were, the mandates about wearing masks, not wearing masks, and, whether people wanted to do it or not. And we extended the sidelines a little differently so you could spread out. So, you had those things, and indoors we did a few things, but, we've always believed that communities would do the right thing for young people, and they did. I mean, they absolutely did. I mean, they did everything to give their community the opportunity to participate. And that was no right or wrong answer, because we've never been through this before. Coach Alvarez always joked that I said, he need to tell us what to do because he was around for the first pandemic. So what did y'all do when y'all? But I didn't say that. But that was his way of breaking the ice. None of us knew what we were doing, but we got to do something. We got to maneuver through this. And we honestly didn't know if we were going to get shut down. So we wanted to start. We didn't want to take football and move it to the spring, not knowing what was going to happen to the spring sports. So let's start football. Let's start our fall sports. And if we have to stop, we'll stop.
Right.
And then if we can in the spring wave to start back, let's start back. So let's give everybody that opportunity because we'd already stopped in March. Only time we'll know if we did the right thing by shutting everything down. Only the time will tell if we did the right thing by not going to school in the spring of 20. We won't know that for a couple of 5 or 6 years if that was everything. But life must go on. I mean, we can't sit around and not, because those bills and everything going to continue to come. So we have to do the things we have to do. So it was. Again, Michael, that was a great question. I have to, give our hats off to our communities because they're the one that made it possible, for the young people to be able to participate.
Well, let me just commend you on your leadership because you didn't take a wait and see approach. You developed a plan and then implemented and executed. So that's a void that we have in leadership today. So I want to commend you on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Barbara, did you have anything else?
I do. I just have hopefully a quick question. Coach Briggs, I think you touched on it a little earlier. The 7A football championship will be held in Birmingham at the new Protective Stadium. I think in the past years, those championship games have alternated between Tuscaloosa and Auburn. Are they now being moved to Birmingham, or is it that Birmingham just can be added to the rotation of the various?
Birmingham's been added to the rotation. When we prior to 1996, all football championships were played at the home venue.
Yes.
The city of Birmingham came to Dan Washburn and asked him about holding a championships there in Birmingham, and that's when we started. We called the Super Six.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2010, the cities of Auburn and Tuscaloosa came to Mr. Savarese and asked him, about basketball, what they wanted. Basketball at the time is still in Birmingham, and it's been there this will be, I think I may be wrong. I think the 30th year has been in Birmingham collectively, maybe not as far. But he said, well, what about taking football? He said, we have students who will never step foot on the fields in Tuscaloosa and Auburn. This is a chance to give those kids a dream of playing in that stadium. And everybody thought, well, you're crazy. Those people are going to get lost in those stadiums. But it wasn't about the people. It was about the young people.
Yes.
Because there will be students that will be out there. There'll be cheerleaders. There'll be band members. And there'll be people in that community that would never can afford to step in those stadiums without this opportunities. And to see those young people that come to that stadium and walk out there on the field. I can give you a prime example. 3 years ago, we were in Tuscaloosa and it snowed. Mm-hmm. And there were two schools. One of them was Fayette County High School in Fayette. Those kids looked out there and said, this is like being at Lambeau Field when we seen on TV.
Wow.
They were so excited to be out there in that snow and playing in Bryant-Denny Stadium that that's what you do these things for that, yes. Because they know what they see on television, they know what their dreams are, but they also know what reality is. People don't know that only less than 1% of high school athletics, especially in the sport of football, will make it to the NFL. Everybody have this dream that every kid's gonna make it to the NFL, but they don't. Right. Only 4% make it to college to play football. Less than that make it to the Division I's to play football. So, right. I mean, to have that opportunity to have those young people that will be on that field and look around, and mama can take that picture of them on a uniform and they all walking around and they're saying, Bo Jackson ran on this field. Cornelius Bennett was on this field. That's what they think about. That's what they dream about. Cam Newton's, all these things that, that Derrick Henry. I mean, that's what, and because of that initiative, we have other state associations now have gone to their colleges to want to play on those fields now because they see the result. We've had probably 25 or 30 other state associations that come to Alabama to audit what we do and look at what we do. And, so it's giving those state associations to do the same thing. So we're proud of what initiative we've done for our schools and our young people in the state of Alabama.
That's great.
Coach, thank you so much, man. We really, really appreciate you being with us, and congratulations and the best of luck over the next 10 years. Maybe I will have retired by the time you retire, hopefully.
Well,
I'll be retired.
Well, I want to thank you for having me on. It's great meeting you. I met you at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame and introduced myself. Matter of fact, I introduced myself to you because I told you my mom loved to watch you in the heat of the night. And then when I told her you played at Auburn, she was just, it was just, her eyes lit up. So, those great. And, you talk about your time there. One of your former teammates who just recently passed was a mentor of all of us when we were there at the team who was there, Coach Daniel. So, it was just great. It was just great to have him there and be around. And, it's great seeing you and talking to you. So I'm going to have to tell her that we had a great conversation, and I'm going to go back and pull this up and let her see me talking to you. And I'm sure she'll get on me for not doing something. I always tell people that my mom, I'm 57, but she still thinks I'm 15. So it's great. It is great.
Well, it's been great, man. It's been great to talk with you. And it's funny. Yesterday I was talking to a lady on a phone call, and she said, well, hopefully sometime we'll get to meet. Now, we're working on a project together, so I've been talking to her for 6 months, but you forget that you haven't met these people. You just seen them on the Zoom. You just talked to them on the phone and stuff. But I'm hoping you and I will get a chance to meet sometime here in the near future and sit down and just have a chat. I really appreciate you being with us, man.
That's great. I would love to. Thank y'all for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me finish out with a comment on coaches, since we're talking about coaches today and what they can be in a young person's life. I was very, very fortunate, beginning with Coach Porter at John Carroll High School. Coach Porter taught me a lot about sports, but just taught me a lot about life. And I'm so appreciative of him. Coach Jordan at Auburn University, Coach Gene Lorendo, our offensive coordinator, he gave me a shot as a freshman and made me a starter for him for 3 years. He rewarded us with toughness and with inner strength. Coach Tim Christian, who was my position coach, who I talked to this past spring for the first time in 30 years, not because we were upset with each other, whatever. It's just that he'd gone away and I'd gone away, but we had a great conversation. He took care of me as a coach, and I took care of him as his number one position player. Coach Doug Barfield, who listened, and how important that is for young people when they have somebody who's in a position of authority who will listen. Coach Barfield allowed me to be me. We had a lot of fun, and we went 10-2 that year, finishing number 8 in the country. There have been others in between, and those I left out, I apologize to, but thanks for being there. I want to say congratulations again to Coach Briggs. Wonderful to talk with you. Continue to make a difference in young person's lives. This is how I see it for this Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. That's our show for today, but I have one more quote. One more comment. I want to say hello to Luana Faye Carroll in Apple Valley, California. We appreciate you being with us, and hopefully we'll get to our paths across again. She was in school when I was in school there. And I want to leave a comment from Antley Lamont stating, Michael, you'll appreciate this. We were talking about the COVID He says South Carolina city employees have been given a choice: get the shot and get a $500 bonus, or not get the shot and possibly get fired. I think I could figure out which choice I'd make. So that's how I see it for this Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. That's the show for today. I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you so much. I want to thank Michael and Barbara. I want to thank Coach Briggs. Our upcoming G-list guests on TWT are Byron Franklin, Kai's Stephen. I hope I pronounced that right. I should have asked Barbara before I said it. Anyway, if I didn't, I'm sorry. Kenneth Kelly. As we get into the holidays, we'll have a special Thanksgiving show, and of course, we'll have Santa Claus here with us for Christmas. I want to thank our sponsors, Best Girl Inc. and Mainstream Financial Group. You know somebody you think would make a great guest, please refer them to us at either Thom@bestgirl.com or Emily@bestgirl.com. I want to thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer. Thanks, Sean Jones, the organizer. Remember, enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.